Amen. Okay, this here, I intend to do this week, Lord willing, but I'm putting it on the board right now to kind of defend myself. This here is where we've been going through for some time now. I've had 2 sermons in Lambert Church and a couple of weeks in the School of the Prophets on the same series. I'm just continuing that series. This is kind of the connecting link to that series. I know that it's probably too small, and I know that you probably can't see, I can't because I'm colorblind, can't see the distinction between blue and black up there. If I was out there, I couldn't, but there's a reason for it. This is the 2520 chiasm that you can come to recognize from Hiram Edson's 7 articles on the 7 times that were published in 1856. This is the 126 years that we recognized not so long ago that takes place from 1863, the end of this chiasm, until the time of the end, 1989. And we've come to understand that this 126 is typifying the 2520. So we have a chiasm here that is the same identical structure as this 2520 chiasm, but it's based upon the 126. And it has caused a little bit of shaking in regards to this waymark. Here, I'm going to address that. That's what all this is about, okay, is to try to make a point about this. And this is the 65 years that is the beginning of this prophecy, and this is the 65 years at the end of this prophecy. I have a reason for having it up there that we haven't dealt with yet in terms of Hiram Edson. So where to begin? I guess I'll begin. I was going to say something about the subject of Fox News and CNN later this week, but brother brought it up right off the bat up here, and rather than explain it to him after the meeting or tomorrow sometime, I'm going to put it in the record anyway. I have no problem whatsoever with what Tess Parminder are saying about Fox News. I believe Fox News is a test for Adventists in the United States, and that it is not the source of information that you should be listening to. I also, when I went to Africa with Kathy, I never wanted to go to Africa as a human being. I was tired of traveling, and I just assumed Africa would be rough, and there were some parts of Africa that were rough. But we went there just to let everyone know that we could go to Africa, whatever we went there for, I don't know. But one of the things that happened for Kathy and I was, and I think both Sakai and Tabo, but at least one of them and a few other people through time have told me that not necessarily Americans, but people from the Western world, they don't really know what Africa's like. You know, when I think of Africa, I think of black men that are carrying the camping gear on their shoulders, following the white guy through the jungle, and then there's some other black guys in front of the white guys that are cutting the vines out so the white guys can walk through, and you've seen those kind of safari shows or whatever. I woke up before I got there that's not an accurate representation of the educational level in Africa. Some of the most well-educated persons that I've ran into came from Africa. So I was awake to that. But when I got to Africa, I can't even begin to tell you about the tribal culture over there, if that's the right way to say it. If you don't know what tribalism is, I can't explain it to you because it's such a complex culture that I don't even understand it fully. But it is totally, totally different than the culture here. I mean, totally different. And it takes a great deal of time to even give you an idea of how different it is, okay? So my point is, I don't know exactly all the reasons I went to Africa, but one of the reasons for me that I went to Africa is I learned the lesson that I really don't have the ability to do commentary on the culture of Africa or the politics of Africa or the political structure or whatever about Africa, because I really don't know Africa. So I think there's been a little bit of confusion caused about this Fox News thing because the people that saw it first weren't from the United States. And they may put it in a context that's a little bit harder for people in the United States to receive because they're not from the United States. Okay, they're just not. And I understand that. I really don't have the authority to claim to be an expert on Parliament in England. I don't get that at all. You know, what the House of Commons and the House of Lords and the Queen and I don't understand their political system. So some of the things in this message that's opened up since September, October, the Midnight Cry message that Sister Tess have brought some very provocative concepts into this message and this movement. And some of it are directed at people in the United States. Fox News is one of them, okay? That's something you got to grapple with. But once you step back and understand the logic of it all, there's some scary stuff about it. First off, it's correct. Second of all, I think the people that recognize that it's correct don't understand that they're going to come under the identical test. Okay, they're going to come under the identical test. So what I'm saying is this, and this may not be the way it's been being taught, and the way it's being taught is the cutting edge. I'm not the cutting edge. So I may have a little bit of weakness on the periphery of what I'm saying about this. But there's a perfect prophetic logic in the fact that Fox News is a test for Adventists. And if you're going to listen to Fox News, particularly after you understand this truth from prophecy, if you understand what I'm going to say is correct and you accept it and you continue to drink in Fox News, then you probably are putting your salvation in jeopardy. The reason it is a test, what has opened up is that as Satan takes the world captive through the Sunday law crisis, the powers that he's going to use to take the world captive are going to use a propaganda machine. And the propaganda machine that's going on in the United States is Fox News. Okay, and everyone in here pretty much, I think, understands that this president here is the president that's there when the Sunday law comes. Okay, so what I'm saying is Fox News is the voice of the person that not only is going to implement a Sunday law here in the United States, but he's going to enforce it all over the world. And the greatest bloodbath in a short amount of time that's ever taken place on planet Earth is going to take place towards the end when these 10 kings make war with the Lamb. But they make war with the Lamb through his followers. So, the point of reference, the way I see what is being taught about that I think is in agreement with what's being taught about that, but which challenges us here in the United States, is that it's no longer, you no longer have the spiritual authority to listen to any news at all without understanding that they are now using sophisticated subliminal hypnosis, subliminal programming, no matter where you're listening, in both cases. So you've got to be on your guard either case. But the reason that you and I are depending on news sources is not to learn what's happening. We're students of prophecy. We know what's happening. We go to the news sources to find a statement from the news that can clearly confirm our prophetic understanding so that we can stand in front of people and say, this is what prophecy said would happen, and here's the news story to prove it. Now the argument here is, well, can I go to Fox News and CNN and take news articles from either one of those that say Mueller found no collusion? Well, yes, you can. You can. Okay, you can do that. But there's a problem with using Fox News that you need to be aware of, that you will be held accountable for if you use Fox News. Okay, and it's this. We are students of prophecy. We're supposed to know what's going on based upon the prophetic word. We're using these news sources not to teach us which direction to go, but in order to bolster the message that we have to carry to the world. And what we have to carry to the world, when I say world, at one level it's the world, okay? What we learned in this message a long time ago is that first the United States gets tested, then every country on the globe thereafter gets tested, okay? So some people that started teaching this long before I could understand it, they threw at me, well, one of the reasons that you can only take liberal news sources and you can't use Fox News is because at the beginning of this movement, when the Time of the End magazine was written, all it used as its historical references was liberal news sources. And I was thinking, well, what, man? I wasn't making a distinction between liberal or conservative news sources. I was doing just what I just explained to you. I was looking for historical evidence that what we were teaching about prophecy was being fulfilled. Okay, so you get the best visual picture with the best title of the article, and you don't even need the whole article. You're just trying to prove your point prophetically. And there just wasn't a divide between conservative and liberal at that time. In fact, the Time of the End magazine was essentially finished in 1995. One chapter a month throughout the year of 1995, and then in 1996 we took all those chapters and combined them into one magazine called The Time of the End in 1996. So that is where this message was what? Formulated. That's also when we get a ministry that's not being used, but it was named long before we arrived on the scene. And what was the name of that ministry? Future for America. We thought that was kind of neat. Here we're talking about a Sunday law in the United States, and we get this entity's always already up and running, and the name is Future for America. It fits our message. That's cool. At that point, we weren't actually seeing all these little nuances as God's leading. So in 1996, the message, the warning message for the United States, Future for America, was put into history. By the way, when was Fox News started? 1996, brothers and sisters. Okay? 1996, for the United States, there is a line of information that's put in place that's going to open up the prophetic word. And there's also the propaganda machine for the powers to be that are going to bring in the Sunday law that begins to work at that point in time. That alone should give you a little bit of pause about what our preconceived ideas are here in the United States. Now, I don't accept all the commentary in its message about constitutional analysis, okay? People from Europe explaining American history or constitutional law or these things to an American can be a stumbling block. You're thinking, you really don't know these things? What are you lecturing me about them for? So I'm going to say here in front, I do think that some of the chatter about those kind of details is a little bit skewed because it's not coming from people that are familiar with the United States, but it's still accurate. Okay, it's still on target for the principle that is trying to be put in place. Okay, so at some point in time, in connection with this, I'm going to have to show you just a little snippet out of William Miller's first dream. Okay, and in William Miller's first dream, there's a place where he's going to, in the guy David Arnold that's commenting on William Miller's dream, and this was part of our school, so people that have been in the class have those notes. They're available. But as David Arnold is summarizing the message of that time in this particular newsletter that has William Miller's first dream in it, it's not the dream in early writings, it was republished in 1855, 1 year before 1856, but it's been republished. So I don't really know the first time that it was published, but I've been told that at least 3 times in pioneer history, William Miller's dream was published, and they understood that it was inspired. That's why they were printing it and commenting on it. And he goes through 4 rooms, and in one of those rooms, the second room, he goes into a room and there's a bear chained up. There's a dog that's barking at it. It's causing all kinds of confusion. And somebody reaches to get the dog away from the bear, and the bear bites the guy, and William Miller has to go and hit this bear on the head to get the guy's hand out of the bear's mouth. And the commentator on that room says this, David Arnold, I'm going to summarize it down. He's saying each of these rooms that he goes into, the 4 are churches. They're some kind of church organization. He doesn't say churches, but they're organizations. And that one, it was William Miller going into an audience with the message of the hour, and he could not get his message over because of all this confusion. And the confusion is that this bear was Rome that had been chained up, received its deadly wound. And the dog that was agitating and causing the scene represented the issue of abolition that was taking place in that history. And the argument over pro-slavery or anti-slavery was impacting the churches of that history, to where the churches of that history had no time whatsoever to consider William Miller's message. Okay? So what I'm saying is, Future for America has taken the position that we may see some little nuances about people outside the United States when they're commenting on their view of the Constitution or constitutional law or those kind of issues dealing with Fox News and CNN. But those are the issues, liberalism and conservatism, that are leading to a civil war. And the argument of abolition in Miller's time in that room were the issues that were leading to a civil war. And what David Arnold says, and hopefully I'll read this, just a little snippet. He says, and this is my words, but he says, slavery's wrong. It's totally against God. Slavery's bad. This is my words. But he says, the Bible says slavery is going to be with us to the end of the world. So to take a position on either side of it is to miss the message of the hour. So his point is we weren't supposed to get wrapped up into arguments about politics, particularly at the point in time when you know a civil war is on the horizon, and you know that William Miller's dream back then, that was the thing that was causing his message not to be heard, was the argument over the upcoming civil war. And I'm here to tell you that the argument over CNN and Fox News is arguing over the issues that's leading this country to a civil war. So we need to address these things prophetically, but we have to figure out how to address them without conflicting with one another. And I don't have the confidence to give commentary on tribalism in Africa. I don't live there, okay? So I don't mind that the Lord has opened up this message that begins in the United States from people outside of America, and then they're bringing to us this message, and it's a little bit difficult to listen to people tell you how bad Fox News is when they've never listened to Fox News. Okay, but the point is I believe the fact that this Fox News is a test, it's such an important test, I believe the Lord actually chose people outside the United States to give him this message to add to the test for Americans, because it is a test for Americans. Because what are the historical events for, brothers and sisters? They're up to uphold your understanding of a prophetic message as you present it to your audience. Okay, this is what I understand about prophecy. Here's the historical evidence. Okay? So, your audience that you're getting prepared to go to, number one, if they don't live in the United States, they don't hear Fox News. It's almost impossible to get Fox News outside the United States. You can do it through the internet, but that's it. In some places around the world, you can't get it even with internet. So Fox News is something that's testing just the United States. When they say that, it's only here in the United States. Okay, so but we got a message to carry to people outside the United States. So what's the news source everyone else is listening to? CNN. Okay, so if they're listening to your prophetic message, and you choose to back up your prophetic message with Fox News, that is the propaganda machine that is going to be given information about why it is justifiable to have a Sunday law. You have to know that as this crisis progresses, Fox News, which is by my count a majority of Catholics, that they're going to be pro-Sunday law. Okay? So if someone's out there in la land, just being awakened by the Holy Spirit, they really don't know the issues, and you're going to show them that prophecy is fulfilling, and you're going to give them 10 references from Fox News instead of 10 references from CNN. If they're understanding that the Lord is using you to give them some spiritual leadership, then they might just assume that, hey, they're picking Fox News because Fox News is a place that I need to wrap my mind around Fox News and start listening to that. Them not knowing the issues of the Sunday law, they're going to begin hearing this philosophy and not even be aware of it because it's a very sophisticated seduction that's going on. Whereas, if you want them to be prepared for the Sunday law, there's only one group in the United States, and you know who they are, that's going to be fighting the Sunday law. Who's that? It's the Democrats. Why are the Democrats going to fight the Sunday law? It's because Donald Trump's going to bring the Sunday law, and you have a witness. You have a witness over the past 2 years. There isn't anything that Donald Trump does that the Democrats don't oppose. Do you think that's going to change in the next couple of years? Okay, the Democrat, and there's, if you're a political animal in the United States, and if you are a Republican, then there's a frustration that every Republican has. You know what that frustration is? I'm not a Republican, but I know what that frustration is. The frustration for Republicans in the United States is you can take 50 Republicans and you're going to have a vote. 20 of them will vote yes, 25 will vote no, and the other ones will abstain. But if you have 50 Democrats, they're going to vote 50 every time. 50 every time. That's one of the most frustrating things for the Republicans. They always splinter apart, but you and I know, since Donald Trump's taken office, that 9 out of 10 times when the Democrats vote, they vote as a bloc. And if Donald Trump is the guy that's bringing in the Sunday law, they're going to be the element that is resisting that Sunday law. And the Democrat spokesman is CNN, so to speak. That's their propaganda machine. And there's all kinds of garbage that's being filtered through CNN. But you can rest assured that when the issues of the Sunday law crisis begin to escalate, that CNN is going to be fighting them with every ounce of their strength, because they're going to be fighting Donald Trump. So if you have an audience that's in la-la land that needs to be acquainted with these things, then sure, you don't really want them drinking in all the philosophy of CNN, but if you do want them getting educated on the serious issues of the implications of a Sunday law, then that's where they're going to find the information. They're not going to find it on Fox News. So as a messenger, if you go out and you present the prophetic message, and you're backing up your prophetic message with Fox News, you may very well have blood on your hands if someone that accepts that message ultimately gets led into the philosophy of the Sunday law at Fox News. So there's just a simple logic there that it has nothing to do with whether the moral agenda of the left or the right is better or whatever. It has to do with your responsibility as a messenger to guard the people that are coming up to this light, and guard them carefully, because this is a very sophisticated propaganda machine that we're not even aware of what's going on. Okay? We've had a couple more families move on our property, relatives here recently. And what happened at our property, we had a little internet network. There's the network just crashed because we're at the end of this line, and it just got really difficult when that many people came in. And as my son was explaining this to me, he says, I've heard this before on the news, and most of you already know this, but I'm an old guy, so I have to have it explained to me, and I got it recently, so I'll explain it to you. Every piece of technology that you have in your house has got a chip in it. I don't know that every one, but many of them, if you got a network, a television, a stove, a microwave, anything that's got some lights on, if it's got a chip on it, it's going to be reaching out to your internet network and pulling whatever information off, megabytes or whatever, pulling stuff off of it. And that's what happened to ours, is we just got too many households there with too many modern technologies pulling it down. So what I'm saying is, the internet is so sophisticated now, brothers and sisters, that the type of propaganda machine that we're being warned about is the kind of propaganda machine that, yeah, you don't want to be leading people into the morality of the left necessarily, but if you have to prove your prophetic message, then you need to prove it from a historical point of reference that doesn't endanger your audience by giving them the possibility that you're putting some kind of endorsement up on Fox News. Fox News is designed as the propaganda machine for this point in history. If you understand 1996, you've got to see that. You've got to see that. No coincidences in God's Word. Both streams come in 1996. And so, that being said, we're being tested. whether we're going to allow ourselves to get drawn into the civil war that's about to take place, and it's about to be taking place over left and right, liberal and conservatives. And here in this room, we're being tested by that. And the Lord has revealed to us through this parable teaching that that Fox News is it Joseph Goebbels that was Hitler's propaganda mind? Was it Goebbels? That's what Fox News is here today. Okay, but Goebbels, it may have been good at what he did, but he didn't have the computer power to do what they're doing today. So it's a dangerous point of reference for us to be listening to, but it's just wrong to put those historical quotations with the prophetic message when you know your audience, you're trying to bring them up to the truth. Now here's the part I don't think the brethren, maybe they do, I haven't listened to everything yet. When the United States is tested, Sister White says every country on the globe is led to follow her example. Okay, so I'm hearing the Europeans say, you Americans, if you're going to listen to Fox News, Americans in this movement, you're probably going to lose your way and die. Okay, and I'm thinking, yeah, now I get it. I get why they're saying that. Maybe they could have said it a little differently, maybe not. But I don't hear them saying that after the United States, they have the same test. And their test is after the United States fall, the same test, Sister White says, the same crisis comes up on all our people in every nation of the globe, or something like that. The same crisis comes up on all people in every nation. She says something along that line. So if they're going to be tested by the image of the beast being set up, and there is a world image of the beast, is the world image of the beast going to have a propaganda machine as Fox News is for the United States? What's their propaganda machine? CNN. But there is no Fox News anywhere else. When it moves out into the world, they're going to have to come to grips with the fact that CNN has now switched over and decided that what we need is Sunday laws in every country, and they suddenly are going to be confronted with not a conservative propaganda machine, but a liberal propaganda machine, and it fits the flow of the Sunday law crisis from the United States to the world. So there's more that can be said about that, but I think it's a genuine test that is marked in prophecy that we need to internalize. Many of these things that at first were a little bit foggy, at least for me to understand. Whoa, man! When you see them, what you get them in your head, they're pretty profound stuff. Which, as they should be, as they should be. Now over here, what this is, and I have lots to say about this. And the only reason that I have this up here is I just being kind of defensive. I said something in the class last week, and boy, it was one of the, I've been rebuked a lot over 29 years, and I've just been rebuked, or I've just been, slandered or whatever. But the email I got last Friday just took the wind totally out of my sails. And it was from something that I said, and what I said is that Parminder is a false prophet. But I explained myself. Parminder isn't a false prophet. I was making a point. And I thought everyone in the class probably understood the point, but someone outside the class didn't understand the point. And pointed out that some pretty grave conclusions about myself, okay? So I want to go back there and explain something. What I was doing in class is part of this series, and it was going to get to here. I'm going to deal with Parminder. And if you think when I'm all said and done that I'm going to put Parminder in a bad light, you're really not understanding things. And for you to not listen closely to what I said when I said Parminder was a false prophet was just simply you choosing not to listen closely. I was trying to make a point, and the point is this. In 2012, Parminder, based upon this 126, he concluded that the 126 that started in 1888 was going to end in 2014. So he had a message of time, and if you hear this being taught, what went on in 2012, they're going to tell you there's a message that came to Britain, to the United States, and the leadership, that's me in the United States, rejected the message. And there was a message that came from England. I wanted to, someone help me here. What's the message that came from England at the political level? Pardon me? Okay, anyway, we're not going to try to do this from the floor. I thought I had that in my head, but it was gone. But we can get it for you. But in any case, the external of what's going on through Tess's lines identifies that there was a message externally that came from England, and was it Obama that rejected it through John Ash? Anyway, it's not there right now. Same thing happened at the external. There was a message that came out of Great Britain to the United States, and it got rejected. And some of the people I think out there know what I'm talking about, right? Okay, the flow of events is right. I don't have the right names, right?
The people that formulated Cambridge Analytica. So you're close enough, but it's the background to Cambridge Analytica, but they came from England, yes.
Okay, so what they're saying is at the external level, this ability to train people to do what you want through these algorithm programs, it's coming into the United States from England, and there's resistance put up to it. That doesn't sound like the right story. It is, okay. And in the internal, Parminder comes to understand on time, 2014, but he does it in 2012, same year this external is going on. And I reject it. And I keep hearing that I called it fanaticism. No, I didn't necessarily call it fanaticism. I just used a quote from Spirit of Prophecy where she says time setting is fanaticism, all right? I'm a little bit defensive on this one because I'm the one that was fighting the message of the hour. But what I said about Parminder, and this is a serious point, and I have my understanding of it, but part of the rebuke I got on Friday included this serious point. I said Parminder was a false prophet to awaken everyone's sense of what's he saying. And what I said is that he had a message of time that was exactly right, but his message about a Sunday law in the United States was not right. And boy, did I get some wrath for that, because we did come to understand that 2014 is the arrival of the third angel and that all these things happen in 2014. But when did we come to understand that? After 2014, pardon me, did you answer?
16.
Yeah, 2016 in that time frame. So I'm saying that I was interacting with Parminder when he was doing this study. And when he was predicting a Sunday law in the United States in 2014, he was predicting a Sunday law in the United States in 2014. Okay? He wasn't predicting a hidden Sunday law in the line of the priest for 2014 because he didn't even know about the line of the priest then. But what I was told is this movement, this message is perfect. And for me to say that Parminder's message wasn't perfect, well, it was to go off into darkness, essentially. Well, it was really well written, okay? Now, I was setting up something for a further down in this presentation, and what I was setting up is that this, and it connects with this, I was trying to show that if this is October 22nd, 1844, we have now identified, this is where the third angel arrives, that the third angel in the line of the priest arrives in 2014. And in 2012, Parminder predicted 2014, and he predicted a Sunday law in the United States. I believe 2014 is a Sunday law for the priest. I don't know why this is a hard one to conceptualize for some people. But there wasn't a Sunday law in the United States. And I'm not trying to make Parminder look bad. What I was trying to do is say that if this is the arrival of the third angel, and this is October 22nd, 1844, then there was a man named Samuel Snow that predicted October 22nd, 1844, and he was absolutely right on the time, but he was wrong on the event. Therefore, he's typifying the work of Parminder to the very letter. And not only that, this is the end of Samuel Snow. He's going to go off into La La Land himself, think he's Elijah, and end up gone, okay? This is the last work, this history here from August 15th, 1844, Exeter camp meeting through here. This is the last work that Samuel Snow does. Midnight Cry comes to a conclusion. We don't follow on and go into the earth made new like we could have. We're wandering in the wilderness many more years because of unbelief. We get to the end of the world when the Lord's wanting to reintroduce the Midnight Cry, and he introduces a man, Parminder, that does the same thing that Samuel Snow had done as the Midnight Cry starts in our history. He starts exactly where Samuel Snow ended, with the same dynamics, the same two characteristics that allow me to say that Samuel Snow had the right time but the wrong event, and Parminder had the right time but the wrong event. Samuel Snow was typifying, Parminder Byant. Okay? That is not calling him a false prophet. It's calling him a false prophet to get the classroom's attention, because when I say that, then you're going to perk up. He's calling Parminder a false prophet. That was all that was being done in there. So just to give evidence, this is what this is about. If you think that I made this up because I realized I made a mistake, I've been grappling with this stuff here. I've been grappling with this stuff like nobody else. This is Moses transitioning to Joshua. This is Elijah transitioning to Elisha. This is John transitioning to Christ. And this is Miller transitioning to Ellen White. Okay? I've been grappling with the dynamics of the first messenger's ministry decreasing and the second messenger's message increasing. And from my studies, there are 4 lines in the Bible that give you the first and second messengers laid out. It's Moses, Elijah, John the Baptist, and Miller. And what I discovered is, if you look closely, I'll explain this briefly. I'll get back over there, but that's typical anymore. When am I supposed to end? 20 minutes. Okay, I won't get back over there. Just to explain this to you, to what it means, so that I can have a point of reference later on. The reason this little dot here is this is when they're in Egypt. I don't know, but I'm going to assume that Moses knew Joshua in Egypt, okay? But right here, this is the rebellion of the 12 spies, and this is the point where Joshua gets identified as the next leader, okay? He's not going to take over until down here, but right here, he breaks his covenant with the people that came out of Egypt, and he enters into covenant with Joshua and Caleb. And I know there's 2 of them there, but this is the second messenger, but Caleb kind of drops out of the scene. So they're both, Moses and Joshua now are both serving as messengers as they go through history, but Moses dies right here, right before they go into Jericho. That's what this means. I'm just marking a death because of these 4 lines. Elijah doesn't die, John dies, and Miller dies. The first messenger, he'd have to die. It's not necessarily, anyway, they die. So Moses dies here right before Jericho. Okay, in Jericho we've identified for some time Sunday Law, Loud Cry. So what I'm doing is I'm taking this line and I'm looking at the transition between Moses as a messenger and Joshua. I'm marking the places on the line where there's a significant mark in the development of the messenger's career. Right here, Joshua is faithful with the 12 spies, so he's the covenant guy now. The other people are going to die in the wilderness. First messenger gets laid to rest right before you go in the promised land. Then Joshua goes in the promised land. With Elijah, he goes to the Jordan. And at the Jordan, he's going to do a transition to Elisha. We all know that story, right? So this is Elijah coming to the Jordan. And I'm going to argue that Elijah is who Jesus said John the Baptist was. So these 2 lines have a really close relationship because Jesus has highlighted that Elijah is typifying John the Baptist. And at the Jordan, which means the descender, close to Bethbara, which means the ferry crossing. John the Baptist is saying, I must decrease and he must decrease. And Christ comes and he gets baptized. Okay. Decrease, increase. So when you go back to Elijah, this is the transition between Elijah and Elisha at the Jordan. So I'm saying that this is baptism in our history. This is 9/11. Are you with me? Okay, so death. Elisha, I don't know where to mark an end for Elisha. That's why it's kind of vague there. Christ, John dies somewhere before the cross. You know, if anyone knows the time, I don't know the time. It's somewhere before the cross. That's John dying. And the second messenger, Christ, is going onward to the cross, but he goes beyond the cross. William Miller, 1816. Sister White calls him Elijah, calls him John the Baptist. He's coming into history, and he's going to lose his way in 1844, but there's the next messenger's right there receiving her first vision in 1844. Okay, so now you got this history going on, which connects with this history over here that I'm dealing with, this 1863, 1856 history. But Miller dies in 1849, 1 year before 1850. Okay, so there's lots you can say about that, that I'm prepared to say about it. But I just want to put it in the record. For those of you who think that I was bad-mouthing Parminder the other day, this is going to be about Parminder. This is going to be about Parminder. There is no way that I'm bad-mouthing him. Those people that are putting in that light, they're not hearing it correctly. Okay, so okay, nobody's thought much about this, have you? No, okay, I have. I've come to the point where I understand now that the dispensation that I was given to do is a dispensation during the 6th kingdom of Bible prophecy. And the dispensation that Parminder is going to be doing is the 7th kingdom of Bible prophecy. And brothers and sisters, this may seem a little bit too straight that I'm using names like this and saying this about myself, but 6.5 months or whatever it is left, it's okay to be straight, right? I know from the prophetic lines that I have to end, not necessarily die, but I have to end that this message can go forward. That's what the prophetic line says. Okay, I could still be kicking around and doing stuff, and that's what I intend to do, Lord willing. But this transition, if you're not willing to see part 2, then you can't see some of the things that have been illustrated in the scriptures, I don't believe, such as Tamina, you help me on this if I mess it up. Think this through. In Germany, in a camp meeting in 2015? 16? The subject come up with the wheat and tares. Parminder didn't plan on teaching on the wheat and tares. It came up because there was a person there from England that was agitated, just causing trouble. And so Parminder decided he's going to deal with the wheat and tares. It wasn't something he planned for. And if you track what he's been teaching since 2015, he gets drawn into the argument about whether you can tell what's the difference between a wheat and tares, and starts there, and then he begins to use that as a segue into his agricultural model, which becomes one of the primary points of reference in this whole movement, is his agricultural model. But it starts because he's getting drawn into this argument over the wheat and tares. And at the same time that he's doing his agricultural model, he starts begin teaching about parables. And the parable teaching is what's beating everyone up now, probably, that hasn't been taking your time to study it. But the parable teaching, whew, it's really, really interesting stuff. If you could wrap your mind around it, it does some really profound things. But that's not my point. My point is this. Through God's providence, in 2016, a problem was introduced about the wheat and tares, and Parminder decides, okay, I'll respond to it in these meetings. And it leads to not only his agricultural model, but it leads to him beginning to emphasize that he is teaching in parables that we should be teaching in parables. This is the definition of a parable, and this is how you use parables to gather information. That's what he's doing from this point on. And isn't it strange that Sister White says that Jesus never spoke in parables until he got to Matthew 13? That's the same place Parminder started. Okay, you following me? And she says that. All right, so but what I'm saying is, I'll say it this way, I'm John the Baptist. Who would he be? He would be the guy that started teaching parables in Matthew 13. You follow me? Okay, I'm not saying that he is Jesus Christ, all right? Don't leave that, but leave with that thought. He's the second messenger, and the second messenger in this history began to deal in parables in Matthew 13, right where it came into this movement. So there's stuff like that, that to think that the purpose of this study was to undermine him last week just blows my mind that happened. Okay. I have more to say about this, much more to say about this. I'll give you a little clue. I'm going to shrink these lines together. I hope I'm using the right methodology. And I'm going to show 4 primary waymarks for the second messenger. And I'm going to put him in our history and show you that, hey, he was there every time. And then we might go to this history here. And on his way, Elijah, to handing things off to Elisha, how many towns did he go to? He went to 4. And I'd submit to you those 4 towns, they correspond to these 4 waymarks that are brought together when you bring these lines together. And they correspond to 4 points in time where he is increasing and I am decreasing. Okay, so this isn't a minor observation. One of the problems that's come up here, because not everyone, some people are prone to look for problems. I've heard this. Do you know what Tess teaches? Tess teaches that the year that that Donald Trump was anointed president, that Parminder Bryant was anointed here in Arkansas. Internal, external. I agree. But what's the problem with that some people raise? Well, didn't you also anoint Marco and Tabo? Why is Sister Tess only identifying Parminder being anointed in 2016? Well, I'll give you just one quick answer. I can show that before the second messenger comes on the scene, before he takes over, Moses knew Joshua before Joshua becomes the covenant representative. Elijah knew Elisha before the transition. John and Jesus did not know each other. It was purposely designed by God that they did not know each other, but they're second cousins, right? They have a direct connection, but they could not know each other because then people would say it was some kind of conspiracy that they cooked up. Okay? But they knew each other because they were relatives. Did Ellen White know William Miller? Yeah, back here in 1842. She went to some meetings with Ellen White. Therefore, what I'm saying is, every second messenger, the first messenger has known. And they will have known them before the messenger is anointed. Let's put it that way. There's only one of those 3 guys that I knew before 9/11, which is the first waymark where the second messenger is going to get anointed. And in 1996, when Fox News came into history and Future for America came into history, it may have been 1995, but in that time frame, I look at 1995, 1996 pretty much as the same, but we call it 1996 correctly. But I knew that magazine was produced over a year, one article at a time, and then put together in 96. Somewhere in there, I did my very first public presentation at Hope International. And there was a man from England there that was at those meetings, that came and introduced himself to me and spoke to me, and I don't remember that meeting at all. But the very first time I spoke publicly, Parminder Bryant was there. And throughout our ministry, he and I have rubbed shoulders over and over again. I knew him before it all started. I got 4 witnesses that that's one of the characteristics. So when someone says there was 3 of them anointed in 2016, why is Sister Tess just pointing to one of them? Well, one of the reasons is he was being anointed as the second messenger and they weren't, because I didn't know them before 9/11. Okay, that's the kind of stuff that's in that, and there's more. One of the other things is, you know what I get to do? I get to give my mantle to who I want, not to who I want to give it to, but who I know it's supposed to go to. That this teaches it. This teaches it. John was told he would know when Jesus came. And he would know when he came, and then it would be confirmed with a miracle. Okay? Elijah is walking down the road, takes his mantle, and throws it on Elisha. That means he knew he was the one. I'm here to tell you, Parminder's the one. That's my mantle, publicly. Okay? So, it just is really frustrating, beyond the cloud that came with Friday with this, that people were unwilling to hear what I'm saying. But this raises the point. In that email, it was contended that everything that Tess teaches is immovable. I've had conversations with Parminder and we never came to that conclusion. Therefore, if everything that she says is immovable, then I'm attacking the message when I say that Parminder gave a half-correct prophecy in here. That he was wrong on the event and right on the time. And I do understand that afterwards we can come back and we can see in the line of the priest that this is the waymark for the Sunday law. I'm not denying that. But I'm saying technically, if I have to stand before you and tell you that this was fulfilled based upon something that we understood later about the priest line, then when I stand before you, I won't give you a historical event about a Sunday law. I'm going to give you a prophetic line to show you the truth, not a historical event. Okay? There's a difference. Personally, I think the work he did in 2012 was perfect. This had to happen this way. It's the Lord's leading, and therefore I'm not willing yet to turn loose of the idea that Samuel Snow doesn't possess the identical characteristics of this prediction in this history, because I didn't see a Sunday law in the United States in 2014, and that's what was predicted. Okay, so the issue that I'm pointing out here is this message unfolds, is perhaps, there's some people that think that I've just crossed the line. Because Tess isn't going to say that anything was wrong with that message. She's going to emphasize the time element. She says the leadership's going to oppose it, which they did. And that's fine. Teaching it at that level, that's fine. Making her point about the resistance to a message that comes from Britain, that's fine. But when you're getting down to another level, looking at what's being typified by Samuel Snow in relation to the work he's done, then I just think the event was off, just like Samuel Snow. And praise the Lord that the Lord watches details. Okay. Let me... 3 minutes. I learned here recently that what I taught about the closed door and the Sunday law was wrong. Okay. this is wrong. And when I see it, I thought, yeah, I was wrong, okay? But only now, okay? I was right for the time that I was preaching. It was the message of the hour, and it was right, but it has become a different message now that the message isn't going to Adventism, it's going to the world. I was given a message to Adventism, brothers and sisters. It was to awaken Adventism. The second message is to awaken the people to carry a message to the world. And how you witness to the world is different than how you witness to Adventists. When you go to Adventists, they're almost gone, all right? 1957, they're in perfect darkness. 1989, the time the end wakes up, what do they need to hear? They need to hear a real simple message that can click in their head. That simple message is that the Sunday law, your probation is going to close, you're going to receive the mark of the beast or the seal of God. But we never understood the level that at the Sunday law, both classes are going to be manifested, but the faithful class, it's going to move on and still be in a testing process. It wasn't anything I was seeing because it wasn't a detail that I would need to share to Laodicean Adventists. What I needed to share with Laodicean Adventists is that you need to wake up or you're going to die. And I wasn't at the level, let alone them at the level, to talk about the priests, the Levites, and the Nethinims and what it means that those doors are closing. All right? So I learned that what I taught about the closed door and the Sunday law here recently, it was right. It was for my time. It was the message. God said amen to it, but now the understanding of the closed door, it's got bigger. All right, is that kind of like William Miller's jewels, isn't it? They shine like the sun at the beginning, but at the end they shine 10 times brighter than the sun. I'm arguing that the dirt brush man's here. He's starting to sweep things out and clean things up. And I'm still of the mindset that from midnight to midnight cry, that's when all those jewels get cast in there perfectly and the message is in place. But who's the dirt brush man? Christ is the dirt brush man. How's he clean things up? Parables. A new methodology. Who's Christ? Ooh. I see. So you can hear Pippenger say to an audience that's not a bunch of people in this movement, new people. I heard him say this down in Brazil. He says there's two methodologies out there, and one of them you need to discard or you're going to be lost. And people in this movement can hear that and they're saying, hey, he's saying you need to discard Brother Jeff's methodology or you're going to be lost and accept Pippenger's methodology. Our methodology is identical. Amen. What he's saying is, if you're just coming into this meeting and you're coming out of Adventism, the methodology you're holding on to, you got to get rid of or you're going to be lost. But Pippenger can also say that he has a methodology going and then he has a new methodology. What's his new methodology? Parable teaching. So keep these things straight as you're hearing these things out on the internet. Jesus had a methodology just like John the Baptist until he got to Matthew 13 and then he switched to parables. There was a methodology in this movement until we got to Matthew 13 and then we switched to parables. And when that happened, the dirt brush man arrived and started cleaning things up. So that's that part of where we're going. This part over here, this part is what I will also get in trouble for, but we'll take that up tomorrow. That is what your notes are for. Never got to your notes. And there's a couple more things to share along the way about this message, but I'm over time. If any of you, and you cannot take my word for anything now more than ever. Every day it becomes more imperative that you get this message straight in your head for yourself. For yourself. Your husband can't do it for you. Your wife can't do it for you. And you can't It's just natural. That's the way we are as human beings. You can't be having confidence in me, particularly at a time period where this new methodology is magnifying old truths. You got to keep on top of the magnification process that's going on, is my counsel. I don't think, though, that what I'm going to share here is outside the scope of the Midnight Cry message. And I'm still not convinced that every single little, and I'm talking about the minor little things that Tess's teaching isn't open for historical correction or this, that, and the other, but her overall message is, I have no criticism for it. But I could be wrong on that. Because there's people out there that think you just have to take just what she says and that's it. I don't know that she thinks that. I'm talking about people in the audience. But I think this history here, 2012 to 2014, was perfect. I think it's perfect even with acknowledging that Parminder had the event wrong. And I don't mind going back in and showing how that is the Sunday law for the priest and working with it from that point of view. I do it. I think they're two different approaches to the same history, and they're not in contradiction with one another. I hope you're understanding by this time the necessity of being baptized before November 9th, midnight, Raffia. So if you've been thinking about it, Sabbath, we're going to do one here, but we have to, if we don't know you, we're going to have to spend some time interacting with you. So if it's a possibility for you, then you need to be praying about it. Quick prayers. So in the next couple of days, we can get that on the list. Shall we pray? Father in heaven, we're beginning another camp meeting here, and we've been amazed at the light that you have opened up on how you were providentially guiding the various camp meetings in this movement here and abroad with uncanny ability. We know that you have planned this camp meeting, that you have something that you're trying to accomplish here, and we ask that you accomplish that in each of us in a way that would glorify and honor you. I ask that you would bring a conviction upon all of us that we have a very short period of time to come up to the high calling that's been put before us with this Midnight Cry message, and that we take advantage of our time here to learn what we need to learn to share this message and bring our life into agreement with it. Many hard truths. We want to be among those that follow the truth even when they're hard. Ask you to do this. We ask you to continue to pour your latter rain out upon this meeting from beginning to end. In Jesus' name, amen.